is a 48-year-old Vietnamese exile. His name? Ho Chí Minh. Soviet documentary maker Roman Carmen films him and his supporters in 1954. In an address at the founding of the Indo-Chinese Communist Party, Ho Chí Minh.
World War II will soon break out. When it happens, the French imperialists will certainly drive our people to a more horrible slaughter. However, their barbarous oppression and ruthless exploitation have awakened our compatriots. Everywhere, the masses have risen to oppose the French imperialists. Our people suffer under a double burden. They serve not only as buffaloes and horses to the French invaders, but also to the Japanese. What sin has our people committed to be doomed to such a wretched plight?
As the pro-Vichy French authorities administer Indochina under the watchful eye of the Japanese army, Ho Chí Minh and a small band of fellow revolutionaries set up camp in a remote region across the Vietnamese border in China. One of them is a 29-year-old intellectual, Vo Nguyen Giap.
When we were in Quay Linh, Uncle Ho came and discussed with us the preparations for the task ahead when we return to our country. He said, in the current situation, national security becomes all the more important. We must organize a broad national front. We had better call it the Vietnamese Independence League. But that's a long name. We'll shorten it to Viet Minh. People will remember that.
During their exile, Ho Chí Minh takes a prophetic decision about Giap's role.
Uncle Ho asked about organizing a national liberation army. Turning to me, he said, "This you should carry out. Can you do that?" I answered, "Yes, I'll do that." Then he said, "We are still weak. The enemy is strong. But we must not let them annihilate us."
As the Japanese empire in Asia begins to crumble under the overwhelming onslaught of Allied forces, Giap launches a general insurrection throughout Vietnam. By the middle of 1945, he has risen to the rank of general at the head of a force of 10,000 men. But fighting the Japanese is costly. General Giap.
Then came the terror. Whole families were arrested, their houses burned. Villages were razed to the ground. Those who had revolutionary papers were shot, beheaded, or had their arms cut off and displayed in the marketplace. Thousands of piastres were offered as a reward to those who brought in a revolutionary's head. We knew the struggle would be long and bitter. As early as 1941, Uncle Ho had warned us that the fight against the Japanese was only the beginning. He knew that the British and the Americans had the same motives as the French. They were all imperialists.
On July 22nd, 1954, Ho Chí Minh speaks to the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, the new nation north of the 17th parallel.
We have achieved many glorious victories. We have achieved this great victory.
Victory at Dien Bien Phu creates a wave of euphoria across the country. Ngoc Anh Vu, a civil servant in the French administration.
At first, we couldn't believe it. The Europeans, so big and strong, with all their tanks and aeroplanes, beaten by us, humble little Vietnamese. farmers, school teachers, factory workers. We were so proud.
With the red flag of revolution flying proudly to mark the Viet Minh victory, the West's anxieties about the march of communism are reinforced, especially in the aftermath of the Korean War. General Giap.
The success of the revolution in China had created a balance of power between East and West. The war on the Korean Peninsula was evidence of this new world situation. Until now, our war was still a battle between the peoples of Indochina and France. The United States was determined to replace France in Indochina, but the situation did not allow the US to jump directly into war. It might develop into a second Korean War, in which there was no guarantee of victory for the US, and it would not be easy for them to draw in allies already exhausted from Korea.
Compromise is reached at the Geneva Conference and signed on July 21st, 1954. A ceasefire is to take effect immediately. A temporary division of French and Viet Minh forces is to be created at the 17th parallel. Elections to unify Vietnam are to take place within 2 years. The independence of Laos and Cambodia is confirmed. China stares across the divide from the north. In the south, a bulwark of the West, sponsored by the United States, glares back. It will take 20 years of suffering and death before the confrontation that will soon engulf the people of Vietnam comes to an end. September 1969, Hanoi. A grief-stricken nation mourns the death of its leader, Uncle Ho. Although he has not lived long enough to save a victory for the cause he has led for almost 40 years, Ho Chí Minh has seen the first withdrawals of US troops. 25,000 men ordered home in August by new US President Richard Nixon. In his will, Ho Chí Minh issues one last rallying cry.
The war of resistance may drag on. Our people may have to face new sacrifices of life and property. Whatever happens, we must remain firm in our resolve to fight the US aggressors until total victory.